Good morning. Thank you for joining me for another French racing video. Yet again, we're in a wet and wild East Kent. It feels like it's never stopped raining and the heavy ground is never going to cease. This is quite a short video, just a couple of areas that I wanted to catch up on from the weekend and also what we've got coming up in the next few days. And there are three main points that I wanted to start with. And the first point, which looks the obvious one that we have to start with, in my opinion, is Theleme. He won the Grand Prix d'Automne at the weekend. He's a multiple Grade 1 winning hurdler in France. And he's coming for the Stayers Hurdle at Cheltenham Festival in March. Fair play to Connections. They've decided to roll the dice and have a go. Arnaud Shai is an absolutely fantastic trainer. He's done a wonderful job with this lad. And he was so impressive at the weekend. Now, there are several judges, shall we say, who've put him up as a selection. And as a result, the price is completely gone. And I wanted to give my thoughts and a balanced argument. This time last week, he was 20 to 1. And I know that because I was able to get a few quid on him at 20 to 1 for the Stayers Hurdle. At 20 to 1, he was an absolutely fantastic price. He's a Grade 1 winning hurdler. He won the French champion hurdle back in the spring. He beat the likes of Classical Dream and Flooring Porter with ease around Auteuil. And if you take that form literally, he has got to have a chance in what is, quite frankly, an awful staying hurdles division. No one sets out to win the Stayers Hurdle. You end up in the Stayers Hurdle because you can't jump a fence or you're too slow to run in anything else. If you take Theleme's strong travelling style, the figures that he's putting up around Auteuil, I regularly see him running 165, 170 plus performances. And he's got the turn of foot to win in his prep races over 2.5 miles. So there's loads to like. But the problem is, because he's been put up by the racing blogger and Pricewise mentioned him on the Racing Post Jump Off show, the price has now collapsed. He's as short as 6 to 1. I don't want to get involved at that price. And the reason is that there are lots of reasons to have doubts about Theleme. Firstly is the track. He's never been to Cheltenham before. Auteuil is not the flattest track, but it's nowhere near the undulations of the Cheltenham Hill. That would be a concern for me. The second is the ground. He regularly runs on soft, very soft, and at the weekend it was really heavy ground. What if we get to Cheltenham in March and it's a good ground festival and it's quick by the Thursday? Be another unknown, although certainly on his breeding it wouldn't concern me too much. The hurdles, I've seen a few people say, well, he's never jumped those hurdles. Well, he hasn't, but you can school him at home and he's got plenty of ability. He's a really sound jumper. That doesn't really worry me too much. But there are two real alarm bells ringing for me. The first is the pace. We all know French racing has this reputation of being relatively slow and developing into a sprint. Now, that's not necessarily true with the races that Theleme has been winning. Certainly, if you look at the race at the weekend, that was relatively truly run, and they certainly wound it up in the final circuit. And if you go back a year ago when L'Autonomie was running, her front-running style meant that these races were truly run. I think he stays really well. The question I would have with Theleme is, what if we get a Stayers Hurdle where something like Dashel Drasher runs and goes really hard in front, throws everything at every hurdle from the beginning, and it's an absolute dour staying test, as it has been when the likes of Sire de Burlay have won, and certainly the Paisley Park renewal a few years ago. We know Theleme will get 3 miles round Auteuil. Will he get 3 miles round Cheltenham at an end-to-end gallop with a really low finishing speed percentage where he's got to go deep to the well to go up the hill? It's one question. The second question is, how do they prep him for this? The French season basically requires a horse to peak in May and to peak in November, which he's done for the last 2 seasons and done really well. How do they get him ready? You've got 3 options. The one they've talked about is giving him a prep run on the flat, get him fit on the all-weather somewhere, and then come for Cheltenham. Probably not ideal, but it's one option. The second would be to find him a hurdles race in France. Could they go down to Pau? They could do, but a flat right-handed track on heavy ground is probably not the ideal prep, and he certainly won't get the 3-mile test. Or the third option is to look like Gold Tweet did last year and come across for the Cleve hurdle. I think the flat is their plan at the moment. It's not ideal, but it's one option for going to Cheltenham. But I also take the view we're unlikely to see Theleme more than once before the Cheltenham Festival. He's 6 to 1 now. We all know what he is. I don't think he's going to shorten. I think his price is going to be fairly flat. There's always the risk that one of Willie's doesn't take to chasing and he drops it back into hurdling. You might have something emerge out of handicaps, as Paisley Park did, that looks, and Floyd Porter as well, we should say, that suddenly develops into a staying hurdle type. But I don't think Theleme is going to do anything to enhance his chances between now and March. So if you haven't got on at those early prices, I think you should wait, because I think on the day he's probably going to be about a 6-1 shot, and I think that's very fair. But I still think he's the best staying hurdler in Europe. So the question for me is, will Theleme handle the stayers hurdle at Cheltenham? If he does, then he'll win. And if he doesn't, then he won't. And it's quite straightforward, but I don't think there's any value in his price. Moving on for Theleme, and we're going to talk about very briefly a horse called Milan Tino. You may not have heard of him yet, but you soon will do. He's owned by JP McManus, trained by Noel George and Amanda Zetholm in France. He is a juvenile hurdle prospect. He's had 2 runs, finished 3rd in a listed newcomers hurdle on his debut in September, and then finished 3rd on the 14th of October at Auteuil when he chased home Jigme and Leon de Burle. He's beaten 4 lengths. Those 2 franked the form massively in the Prix series at the weekend. He is one of the best 3-year-olds in France. I had him in my head as being bought by JP McManus as a Boodles plot. But the fact that they've entered him to run at Cheltenham at the weekend in the Triumph Hurdle Trial suggests they think he's better than that. And on the figures, he probably is. I've got him running to 128 on his second start. I don't know a great deal about the British juvenile hurdles form, and I'm certainly not really going to start studying it. But I've looked at the race on Saturday, and I'd probably have him about an even money shot. Is he a Triumph Hurdle horse? Well, this is probably a run to find out. If he wins and wins well on Saturday, they know they've got a Triumph Hurdle horse on their hands. If he doesn't win, or if he doesn't handle the track, there's no harm done. They can put him away and come back for the targets for the 4-year-olds at Auteuil in the spring. But he's a fascinating runner to look forward to. And given the lack in strength in depth in British juvenile hurdling, you'd have to think if he wins on Saturday, if he's not favourite for the Triumph, he's going to be close to being, and he's certainly one to watch. The final part of today's show, I like to give some eye catchers, like to give some examples of horses to follow. And I saw one at Compiegne on Friday who just screams off the page as a talented filly to go over hurdles. Now, this is Theleme. She chased home Go Fast de Burle. He was a multiple winner for Laganest and Macaire. He's actually in the horse in training sale at Arcana next week. Got a really nice page. I expect him to go for big money. Theleme, though, is the horse that interests me, and I'll tell you for why. She's really got a nice page. She's by Great Pretender, trained by the master Arnold Shai, who really likes to bring his horses on. She's missed a lot of time. She actually made her debut in October 2022 at Auteuil. Finished 4th that day in the newcomers hurdle, but she was sent off at 3.8 on the PMU, so around about 11 to 4. Obviously, someone thought that there was a lot of ability there. Missed a lot of time. Came back last Friday at at Compiegne, in what looked to be a relatively strong hurdle. She was given a very, very quiet ride, allowed to take her time at hurdles, get into a rhythm. Certainly wasn't asked for maximum effort. But once she jumped the last, the button was pushed, and she kicked on really well to chase home what is a very talented winner. I've got her running to close to a mark of 120 last Friday. And bearing in mind that was her first run for a year, I think there's loads of ability here, and I think she's probably going to make up into a black type filly and mare to go over hurdles with next year, and it's definitely worth putting in your tracker. Thank you very much for joining me. I've tried to keep it as short and sweet. Don't forget to like and subscribe and all the rest of it to go with this YouTube video. But if you have any comments or any thoughts or any questions you'd like me to answer, drop me a line either in the comments below or on Twitter, and I'll do my best to get back to you. I'll see you soon.